live, so let's get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for April 17th, 2020. Qs up 0.96%, SPY up even more at 2.67%. Coming into today, market bias was bullish as the hourly uptrend continues. Okay, we did have a potential change of that bias if we broke underneath Wednesday's low. You can see we gapped up, didn't come anywhere near it on the SPY there. Qs as well did not take out the low and actually triggered another buy setup here today. Okay, so going into Monday, gonna be bullish underneath today's low. All right, we're gonna be neutral. Okay, so if we break underneath today's low, nice pivot here on the Qs, create it at support underneath the low, then we will be neutral. If we get follow through to the downside, we can start talking about a potential short. Now, I talked about earlier in the week the potential for a weekly sell setup. I don't think it's going to be so relevant going into next week because of the way that we ended here. I thought on the SPY, we're going to put something more like a narrow body bar or a doji bar, and underneath that, you can see that by the time we actually break underneath this week's low, we'll have dropped quite a bit by then, and this hourly uptrend will be long gone. So it's not going to be that relevant, I think. Still, we're following the uptrend as we have been, okay, since we gapped up. All right, it hasn't broken the uptrend. You can see the 20 MA is kind of a good confirmation of that, as that has stayed at a pretty decent uptrend here as well. Okay, so going into Monday, underneath today's low, we're going to be neutral, and then if we have follow through the downside, we'll be looking for the next sell setup for any kind of potential follow through to the downside. That will be the start of our bearish bias. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go over some plays today and try to kind of explain them because next week we have open house. Okay. So a lot of people, if you're been wondering if you'd like to participate in the calls and like to check them out, next week will be your chance. Okay. So we'll kind of go through these, kind of break down what the concept is and the basis for the play. Okay, so I'll start with the TROX. This was a gap up. We call this a pro gap because it is gapping against the recent trend. Okay, so it had been moving lower and then gapped up. Okay, and clearing yesterday's bar, which is nice. Now, personally, I prefer when they actually clear all of this resistance. So I don't want it to trigger like a buy setup. I want it to trigger the buy setup and get past the target all in the gap itself. So I'd much prefer it if it had gapped up there. Now I may be thinking that, but don't you want to get in it at a lower price? But if it breaks over this area, typically the intraday move is going to be bigger, okay? Because more shorts are trapped, right? And you're going to get a bigger reaction. And then you also have a better kind of pattern here forming on the daily that's getting going. So, yeah, I prefer when they actually clear that resistance rather than just kind of start the buy setup here. Okay, so, based on the gap, bullish on it, looking for a way to play it long. Okay, and it was pretty sloppy in the morning. Let it set up on the 5 later into the morning here. And this was the base that I played it over. Base, should be familiar with, probably the most common pattern among traders of all different types of methodology. But range is established here. Play it over that. Stop goes down here. Okay, target is for new highs. Okay, and then the back half eventually trailed break even off of the hourly there. So didn't make too much on this one. Was on the mic, just let you know I'm playing it here, and then stop goes here, let you know when target 1 came up. All right, on the TROX. So kind of a small play there on the TROX. The CMA, which was actually from a room member, was actually much better. You can see that this was also basing another breakout here, right? And perhaps if you had played this would have been a buy setup. series of lower highs after establishing an uptrend, okay, and then playing it once it breaks over a previous lower high, okay, and you can see then there's a breakout. Again, you got a range here, you break up above the range, right, and then that's your entry, okay, and then DXC here in the afternoon, 15-minute buy setup here, so you can see a series of lower highs, we break over the lower highs, target is back into the previous pivot, okay, so buy setups and breakouts, that's the primary way we play long setups, okay, and something about all these plays that you'll hear us talk about also next week, the concept of relative strength or relative weakness, okay, as the Qs and SPY were grinding lower for the morning, these items were not coming in as much, right? They were staying stronger than the market. So then when the market started to move up, right, these were already going to make new highs, okay? So, and continue the uptrend. So that concept you'll definitely hear about a lot. We're comparing these individual names to what we're seeing in the Qs and SPY, all right? All right, so far, you know, this last couple weeks, as we've got this grind higher in the Qs and SPY, we have seen a good amount of sector rotation, different sectors leading the way. Definitely the banks were strong today, CMA, BAC, and that kind of activity does keep the uptrend going, okay? So initially during the week, we saw a lot of tech leading the way. Qs were showing strength to the SPY, and then here today we saw kind of energy, banks kind of show strength, and so you know that kind of sector rotation is healthy for the market as kind of money moves around, and because you can see kind of the difference when the market's coming in, kind of money flows out of all the sectors at once. As we move back up, you can see the sector rotation. And just the divergence between the Qs and SPY is a good indication of that as we kind of grind higher. So we'll see if that continues next week. That's definitely more indicative of bullishness. But even if we're just going off the chart here, right, uptrend on the Qs, uptrend on the SPY on the hourly here, okay, as we grind higher. And then the break of that will be our first sign that maybe the market is weakening, but just hasn't happened in the last couple of weeks. Not that it has to or that it was expected that it would, but we were moving up into some resistance. It's just that we're still letting kind of the chart do the talking, okay? All right, hope you did well this week. We'll be back at it next week, and then just be on the lookout for if you'd like to join the open house, okay? I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend.